It started with something so small, yet so powerful, just a look. His eyes lingered on mine longer than usual, holding me there, as if he could read every thought I was trying so hard to hide. In that glance, there was no anger left, no sharp words from the argument that had broken me only moments before. Instead, I saw softness, regret, and something else, something that pulled me toward him even when my pride wanted to turn away. The room was quiet except for the faint hum of the night outside. The curtains shifted gently with the breeze, carrying in the cool scent of rain-soaked earth. I sat curled up at the edge of the bed, wiping at my tears, thinking he wouldn't notice, or worse, that he didn't care. But then he came closer. Slowly. Cautiously. As though he was approaching not just me, but the fragile pieces of my heart. When his hand brushed against mine, it felt like the world paused. That simple touch carried more apology than any words could manage. My breath caught, and I didn't dare move, afraid the moment would shatter. He tilted his head slightly, searching my face as though trying to find the woman he loved beneath the sadness. And then, there it was, that half-smile. The kind that always melted me no matter how much I tried to resist. The tension between us shifted. It wasn't the heavy, suffocating kind anymore. It was tender, magnetic. My chest ached with a mix of hurt and longing, but his closeness began to ease it. His fingers gently cupped my cheek, wiping away a tear, and before I realized it, I leaned into his touch. Our breaths mingled, and though no words were spoken, everything important was said in silence. The atmosphere seemed to change, the dim light of the lamp casting a golden glow, the air warm with the promise of something unspoken. Every heartbeat, every tiny movement felt magnified. I could feel his warmth seeping into me, his presence both comforting and overwhelming. And then, he kissed me. Soft at first, almost hesitant, as though asking if I would allow it. But when I didn't pull away, when I let the tears dissolve under his lips, the kiss deepened. It was no longer about apology or sorrow, it was about connection, about finding each other again when we were almost lost. What began with pain was turning into something else, something raw, healing, and undeniably passionate. And in that moment, I knew this night was only just beginning. The silence between us wasn't empty anymore, it was alive, charged with something neither of us could deny. I wanted to look away, to rebuild the wall I'd thrown up after our argument, but his gaze wouldn't let me. It wasn't forceful, just steady, pulling me back to the man I fell in love with. "You're still angry with me," he said quietly, his thumb grazing my cheek. His voice wasn't defensive, it was laced with guilt and hope at the same time. I shook my head, though my throat was tight. "I'm not angry, just hurt." He exhaled, the weight of his breath brushing against my skin. "I hate knowing I'm the one who made you cry." His hand slipped from my cheek to rest on mine, fingers barely touching, hesitant, as though asking permission to stay. That gentle contact sent a ripple through me. My instinct was to pull away, but my heart betrayed me, leaning into him instead. His nearness was magnetic, and every second made it harder to resist. I turned slightly, giving myself space, yet he followed, closing the gap like gravity was on his side. Our shoulders touched, and that small connection sparked heat where moments ago there had been only cold. "Why do you do that?" I whispered, almost frustrated. "Do what?" His smile was faint but knowing. "Make it impossible for me to stay mad at you." He chuckled softly, but his eyes stayed serious. "Maybe because I can't stand the distance. Even when we fight, I just want to be near you." His words sank deep, tugging at the part of me that wanted to forgive, to surrender. I caught myself staring at his lips, and quickly looked away, hoping he didn't notice. But he did. The tension grew sharper, like a string pulled too tight. My breath came unevenly, and I felt his hand shift, brushing against mine again. This time, he didn't stop, his fingers slid gently between mine, intertwining, and I let them. My pulse jumped, a quiet confession my voice couldn't yet make. We sat there, close enough that our shoulders, hands, and hearts aligned. Neither of us moved for a long moment, but everything inside me was moving, rushing, wanting, breaking free from the restraint I'd clung to. Finally, unable to resist, he leaned in just enough to press a tender kiss against my temple. It was simple, delicate, yet powerful enough to steal the air from my lungs. I closed my eyes, knowing this was only the beginning, and wondering how far it would go. The room felt smaller than it was, as though the air itself thickened with every heartbeat. We were sitting side by side, yet it felt like standing on the edge of a cliff, one step closer, and there would be no turning back. His hand still rested in mine, warm and steady, but I could feel the hesitation beneath it. I wasn't the only one fighting the pull. "You don't have to forgive me tonight," he murmured, his voice low, almost hushed, as if afraid the walls might hear. "But I need you to know I never stopped loving you. Not for a second." The words sank deep, but they brought confusion with them. My chest tightened, caught between the memory of hurt and the undeniable truth in his eyes. I wanted to argue, to remind him of the pain that still lingered, but when I turned my head to face him, the words dissolved. His gaze locked with mine, longer than it should have, heavier than it had any right to be. There was sorrow there, yes, but also desire, an unspoken plea that stirred something inside me I was too afraid to name. "Don't look at me like that," I whispered, my voice trembling. "Like what?" His lips curved faintly, though his eyes never softened their hold. "Like, you're about to kiss me." He didn't deny it. Instead, he shifted slightly, close enough that I could feel the warmth radiating off his body. The brush of his knee against mine seemed accidental, but it lingered too long to be chance. My breath caught, traitorous and uneven. Every instinct told me to pull away, to protect my fragile pride. But my heart, the foolish, stubborn part of me, wanted to stay in that gravity, to see what would happen if neither of us moved back. "You think I don't feel this too?" His voice was softer now, nearly a whisper. "This pull between us?" I swallowed hard, unable to answer. My silence was enough. He lifted his hand, slowly, giving me every chance to stop him. When his fingers brushed a strand of hair from my face, it was such a simple gesture, yet it unraveled the last defense I thought I had. My skin tingled beneath his touch, and my lips parted, ready to surrender words I couldn't say aloud. Our eyes met again, closer now, breaths mingling in the fragile space between us. He leaned in, slow, deliberate, inevitable. And just as his lips hovered a breath away from mine, the world seemed to hold its breath with us, before the moment broke, leaving us teetering at the edge of something we both knew could change everything. The silence between us grew heavier, wrapping around the room like a veil. It wasn't the silence of anger anymore, it was the silence of anticipation, of two people holding back something they both wanted. He hadn't moved away, and neither had I. His hand still lingered against my cheek, and I could feel the warmth of his breath brushing against my skin. My heart pounded so loudly I wondered if he could hear it. "I shouldn't," I whispered, though I didn't step back. "Neither should I," he admitted with a faint, nervous laugh, his eyes never leaving mine. The sound of his laughter was shaky, uncertain, but it only made the moment more real. We both smiled then, brief and fragile, like we were standing in dangerous territory and didn't know whether to run or stay. But neither of us moved. If anything, we leaned closer, drawn in by something stronger than pride or fear. The distance shrank until every detail of him felt magnified, the slight tremor in his breath, the way his chest rose and fell in rhythm with mine, the flicker of emotion in his eyes that words could never capture. He brushed his thumb gently along my jaw, and my whole body stilled at the tenderness of it. I didn't know if he realized how intimate such a small gesture felt, but it left me trembling. "Do you feel it too?" he murmured, his voice so low it was almost a secret. I swallowed, afraid to speak, because admitting it out loud would make it real. But the truth was in the way I leaned into his touch, the way my eyes kept slipping to his lips even as I tried to resist. The space between us became unbearable. My breath hitched when his forehead touched mine, a quiet surrender neither of us dared to name. We stayed like that for what felt like forever, foreheads pressed together, breaths mingling, hearts racing as if they had already crossed the line we were trying so hard to avoid. The tension coiled tighter, each second stretching longer, deeper, until the pull was impossible to ignore. His hands slid down to entwine with mine again, our fingers locking with a quiet desperation. The warmth of his grip steadied me even as it sent shivers racing up my arm. I closed my eyes, tilting my head ever so slightly, and in that breathless pause, just as his lips hovered a heartbeat away from mine, the world seemed to disappear. And then, it stopped. Suspended. Waiting. The moment before everything changes. Our foreheads still touched, breaths tangled in the fragile space between us. Every second stretched long, aching with the weight of what we both knew was about to happen. Then, just as the pull grew unbearable, the sound of a phone buzzing shattered the moment. I flinched, my heart racing, as his eyes flicked to the nightstand where his phone vibrated against the wood. The name glowing on the screen made my stomach knot. It was his mother. She was the one who always reminded us, sometimes too sharply, that marriage wasn't only about love, but about loyalty, promises, and honor. The call went unanswered, but the damage was done. The reminder of responsibility hung in the air like a cold shadow, and for a moment I thought it might be enough to push us apart. But then he looked back at me, really looked. The conflict in his eyes was as clear as the desire. He was torn, and so was I. My mind whispered that it was wrong to let anger, hurt, and longing drive us to this place. But my heart only knew how much I still wanted him, how much I needed this closeness after so many silent distances. Maybe we shouldn't, I whispered, though my voice shook with betrayal, because even as I said the words, my body leaned closer. Maybe, he murmured, his lips hovering dangerously near mine. But I don't want to stop. Not tonight. The air thickened again, heavy with temptation. His hands slid down my arm, fingertips brushing my skin in a way that made my breath falter. I tried to speak, but the words caught in my throat. Someone will find out, I said finally, weakly, though I wasn't even sure who I meant. His family? Mine? Or was it just the fear of admitting how much I still craved him despite everything? Then let them, he whispered. I can't keep pretending I don't feel this anymore. That confession undid me. My chest ached with the force of my heartbeat, and I couldn't stop my hand from rising, fingers tracing the line of his jaw as though memorizing him all over again. The tenderness of that touch, so small, so dangerous, felt like stepping across a threshold we could never return from. The silence swelled, broken only by the rhythm of our breathing. His lips brushed mine, not fully, just a ghost of contact, enough to send fire through my veins. Every obstacle, every argument, every reminder of loyalty and responsibility, faded under the weight of that single near kiss. I wanted to resist. I wanted to cling to pride. But the truth was undeniable. I couldn't anymore. And neither could he. In that suspended breath, with our hands locked and our hearts racing wildly, the last thread of restraint snapped. And this time, nothing was going to stop us. The moment we had been holding back finally broke. His lips pressed against mine, firm, certain, and filled with everything we hadn't said. It wasn't just a kiss, it was an unraveling, a release of every unspoken word, every unhealed wound, every ounce of longing that had lived between us. My hands clutched at his shirt as if anchoring myself, while his arms wrapped around me with a strength that made me feel both fragile and safe. The taste of tears still lingered, but now they mixed with warmth, with the undeniable sweetness of being wanted, truly wanted. The kiss deepened, urgent and tender at once, and for a moment the world outside that room ceased to exist. No arguments, no expectations, no lingering shadows of pride. Only us, two hearts colliding, desperate to remember how to beat together again. When we finally broke apart, breathless and trembling, his forehead rested against mine. His chest rose and fell quickly, matching the rhythm of my own. For a heartbeat, we simply held on, unwilling to let the silence swallow us again. "I can't lose you," he whispered, his voice ragged. Not to anger, not to mistakes, not to anything. The rawness of his words hit me harder than the kiss itself. My chest tightened, and I realized this wasn't just passion, it was fear, love, and confession all tangled together. "You almost did," I admitted softly, my voice breaking. "But, you still have me." His arms pulled me closer, as though he believed if he let go, I would slip away forever. The intensity of his embrace was overwhelming, but in it I felt something more powerful than desire. I felt choice. We weren't just giving in to heat, we were choosing each other again, despite everything. Then, just as I thought we had found resolution, the twist came. His phone buzzed again. The same name appeared. His mother. A reminder of expectations, of the weight of others watching, judging. But this time, he didn't even glance at it. He left it ringing, his eyes fixed only on me. It was in that refusal, in that small but undeniable act, that the passion between us deepened into something more. This wasn't only about attraction anymore. It was about defiance. About love that demanded to be chosen, even when the world might disapprove. And as he kissed me again, stronger, fiercer, I knew a line had been crossed. We weren't just mending what was broken. We were rewriting it, together. The storm between us had finally broken, and now the quiet that followed felt different, softer, calmer, almost sacred. We stayed in each other's arms, not rushing, not speaking, just listening to the rhythm of our breaths slowly falling into sync again. His hand traced small circles on my back, not out of passion this time, but out of comfort, reassurance. It felt like a promise without words. I leaned into him, resting my head against his chest, feeling the steady beat of his heart, a sound that had once been so familiar but now carried a new kind of strength. For a long while, we didn't need to say anything. The argument, the tears, the hesitation, all of it seemed distant now, softened by the closeness we had found. What lingered wasn't the pain, but the choice we had made to stay, to forgive, to begin again. Finally, I broke the silence. I was afraid we wouldn't come back from this. He tilted my chin gently so I would meet his eyes. His gaze was steady, tender. "We almost didn't," he admitted. "But sometimes love is tested, and sometimes it comes out stronger." His words sank deep, wrapping around the ache in my chest like healing balm. I smiled faintly, tears pricking my eyes again, but this time, they weren't from sadness. They were from relief. From hope. We lay back together, our hands still clasped as though neither of us was willing to let go. The lamp's golden glow spilled across the room, casting everything in warmth, like even the world around us was at peace with our reconciliation. He kissed my forehead, slow and lingering, and whispered, "No more walls between us. Not tonight. Not ever again." I closed my eyes, holding on to the weight of that vow. It wasn't fiery or desperate anymore, it was lasting, rooted deep in the quiet truth that love wasn't just about passion, but about choosing each other, again and again, even when it was hard. And as we drifted into that tender silence, still entwined, I knew this moment would stay with me forever. A memory of tears turned into closeness, of brokenness healed by love. It was worth every second.